You should be good to go.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the October 3rd meeting of the Lower Downtown Design Review Commission. Apologies for some technical difficulties first thing. We will get started with some commissioner introductions. Jim?
Rivera, President.
Amy Sandberg, Preservation Architect.
I'm Heather Vasquez Johnson, Chair and Practicing Architect.
Nick Allen, developer.
Emke, Preservation Architect and Co-Chair.
Lawrence, owner, operator.
And I'm Brittany Bryant, Denver Landmark Preservation staff. And for the record, we started at 8:33 a.m.
Yes, thank you, Brittany. First thing on our agenda today, we've got two meeting records for approval. The record from August 8th, 2024 and September 5th, 2024. Does anybody have any corrections or modifications to those meeting records? Okay, I'm seeing none, so we can accept those meeting records. As we get started into design review and presentations, up on the screen for anybody joining us virtually are some audio tips for the Zoom meeting. Read through all of those. It's best to download Zoom. Try adding a background noise suppression, testing your speaker and microphone. And then if you are presenting or a public commenter when it's your turn to speak, to mute or unmute, you'll use the microphone icon at the bottom of the screen. And expanding that menu will give you some additional options. So your devices, if you're on AirPods or anything like that. And if you're still having audio challenges, switch to phone for audio. And then if you are joining us virtually as a public commenter, when I ask for that, please use the hand raise button to let us know that you would like to make a comment. So we have no items on our consent agenda this morning. So we will move into design review. Up on the screen is the process for design review. I will announce what that item is. If there are any commission members with a conflict of interest, they will let us know and leave the room. Staff will make an introduction to the application and a recommendation. And then at that point, commissioners will ask questions of staff. Afterwards, the applicant is invited to make a presentation. They'll have 10 minutes. Commissioners may ask questions of the applicant. We will open it up for public comment. And again, if you're joining us virtually, please click the hand raise button or dial *9 if you were just on the phone. And then we'll follow up with staff clarifications, open commission deliberation, and then make a commission motion and vote. So our item on design review today is item number 2024-COA-709 for 1320 20th Street and 1962 Market Street. I'll turn it over to Crystal.
Thanks, Heather. Okay, so this is a revised application that was originally reviewed at the September 5th LDDRC meeting for 1320 20th Street, a contributing structure to the historic district, which you can see here at the top of the slide, and 1962 Market Street at the bottom of the slide, which is a non-contributing structure film lot that is proposed for total demolition. This application is proposing a third floor rooftop addition and roof deck for 1320 Street, as well as a courtyard side elevation, side addition, which incorporates remaining portions of 1962 Market Street. Next slide. So outlined in red throughout this presentation are the revised proposals the applicant has submitted for this meeting, and outlined in purple is the previous September 5th application, just so you can see the changes. At left here, you can see the proposed demolition plan for the demo work in blue for both structures. And to the right side of the lot is 1962 Market Street. Total demolition by definition of the zoning code is over 40% of a structure. So over 85% of 1962 Market Street will be demolished. However, portions of the structure, mainly the corner entrance and parts of the walls on either side of the entrance, are proposed to be retained, as well as 2 vintage signs. And it'll be connected to 1320 20th Street as a courtyard. Approximately 35.4% of 1320 20th Street is proposed for demolition with this application, revised from the prior 37.9% in the previous application. The applicant is proposing to remove a large amount of combined wall and roof surface at 1320 20th Street. And a large amount of the roof, west elevation, and north elevation appear to be altered to adjust spaces for the contributing structure with the new rooftop addition, deck, and open air courtyard. However, the applicant has limited alterations to the least visible elevations and explained that the demolition of the west interior lot wall is to bump out the space to the lot line to add stairs for access to each floor. Though staff does still have some concerns about the two-story glass wall and doors at the Market Street elevation that'll be facing Market Street on 1320 20th. This is a less visible facade that has historically not been visible to the public. Next slide. So here you can see the previous proposal for the 20th Street elevation at the bottom and the new proposed elevation at the top. All windows at 1320 20th Street are proposed to be retained for this application, as well as the existing storefronts, which has been revised from the previous application at the September 5th meeting. Policy 1.4 states rooftop additions should be subordinate to the historic structure on which they are located. And our design guidelines state that rooftop additions shall remain visually subordinate to the building and shall have a compatible proportional relationship with the historic building, and shall not change its character. So the one-story rooftop addition you can see here and the third floor roof deck at 1320 20th Street have been further set back from the previous street frontages, reduced in overall footprint as much as possible, and the material, as you can see, has been changed to mostly a glass and metal at the addition with vertical mullions aligning with the windows below. And at the second level, making the addition and roof deck appear more visually subordinate to the contributing structure than the previous design proposal from the September 5th meeting. The new design does not change the character of the historic building and does appear to be more compatible. The new roof deck has a large footprint, but has been partially reduced down from the previous proposal and is set back from both 20th Street and Market Street by at least 11 feet. And appears to be better sized in relation to the existing contributing structure. So the setback from Market Street has changed from 5 feet 1 inch in the previous proposal to 11 feet 1 inch in this proposal, and better aligns with the adjacent structure's facade. And the new roof deck railing is proposed to be of metal, which is a substantial material. Next slide. So here you can see the new Market Street elevation on the right in red. Staff does have concerns about changes to the side elevation of 1320 20th Street facing towards Market Street, although it has historically not been highly visible due to the presence of 1962 Market Street and is not a primary street facing facade. The structure is still intact as a full wall currently, so the addition of this two-story glass wall entrance to the new proposed courtyard will change that historic fabric at this side of the structure. The remaining portions of 1962 Market Street are consistent with design and materials found in the district and are to be connected to 1320 20th Street with glass walls with a printed ceramic design, a brick design at the second floor, and a more modern design with lines at the first floor. The glass printed ceramic walls have no precedent in this context, so staff has asked the applicant to bring material samples, which they have today and we'll go over with you later. And the two vintage signs from 1962 Market Street are also proposed to remain. Next slide. So here's the alley elevation. This one does remain subordinate to the primary facade at 1320 20th Street. The alterations to this alley facade, as well as the following interior lot elevation, will not alter the ability to perceive the building's historic character. Next slide. And then here's the west interior lot elevation. At the bottom again is the previous condition, and at the top is the new proposed addition. As you can see, they're bumping out that back wall to go all the way to the interior lot line. So much of that wall is being demolished and it will be clad in a new flat seam metal panel at the new wall. There's also a small bit of stucco wall here that'll be connected to 1962 Market Street. Next slide. So here's a building section. At the bottom is the previous one, and at the top, the new one. Here you can just see how the roof deck at the Market Street elevation to the right has been further set back to that 11 feet and how that will look from across the street. Next slide. And here is another elevation or section through that you can see looking towards 1320 20th Street. So this is that interior side elevation I was discussing where they're adding that 2-story kind of glass wall, which you can see here. The previous version is at the bottom in purple. So more of this will be retained as that storefront entrance that was, or storefront design that was previously proposed is not here. But it does still have that 2-story glass wall. Next slide. So here you can see some isometric views from the 20th Street elevation. You can see that inset for the previous proposal in purple at the top left. The new rooftop addition is not stepped back a minimum of 15 feet from the facade of the building per preference 1.4. However, the step back has been increased from the previous proposal, which was 7 feet 10 inches to a 10 feet 9 inches in this one. The applicant has stated that required exit access stairways require the proposed locations of these stairways, and due to the size of the lot, no further step backs can be accomplished and still meet these building requirements. Next slide. So here's another view from Market Street. Roof decks within the historic district do not typically jut out from the side of contributing structures. So it is kind of an atypical condition in the district since roof decks are typically contained on a roof. However, the roof deck size and setback has been altered to be set back approximately 11 feet from 20th Street and from Market Street. And the roof deck has been reduced in size due to the change in setbacks, so it appears to be more visually subordinate, does not loom over Market Street like the previous version, which you can see inset and outlined in purple with the lawn. And then here's another isometric from 20th Street. So you can just see the signs that are being proposed and retained at 1962 Market in an overall visual. Does appear to be more subordinate. And the addition does have like a vertical line towards the bottom, so it kind of goes more with the, horizontal line at the bottom of the glass on the addition. The better aligns with the horizontal lines on the contributing structure. Next slide. So this is just one more isometric from further out looking towards the corner of Market Street and 20th Street. So the rooftop addition and the mechanical screening is exactly 20 feet above the roof deck, meeting the requirement, though the height requirements met. The preference for a maximum height of 15 feet for the 1-story structure is not. Most of the 1-story rooftop addition that will be visible from the street stands at approximately 16 feet tall. So it doesn't go over too much and does not meet the preference, though does seem more compatible. The additional height appears to be because of the roof deck connecting with the floor of the addition interior, which will sit somewhat above the existing historic structure's roof. So although staff does have concerns, staff does believe that this revised proposal overall meets the design guidelines and is recommending it.
Great. Thank you, Crystal. Does the commission have any questions for staff?
Crystal, just for clarification, LDDRC has no control over interior demolition, correct?
That's correct. However, we do have something in the guidelines that talks about the way spaces are used in the LDDRC guidelines, which is different from our regular design guidelines, but we don't have typically any purview over interior spaces.
Yeah, specifically what I'm getting at is the 40% rule doesn't come into effect on interiors.
No.
So sorry, did I see that the ground floor fenestration, like mullion pattern, was revised between the original application and this one?
Yeah, so they will be retaining the storefronts in this application.
Okay.
They're not proposing to replace any windows on 1320 Street or the storefront. If they do want to do that at a later time, they can, but they would have to come back to the commission at that time.
Thank you.
Did you say there was a different pattern of fritting on the glass from the first floor to the second floor.
Yes, and that was the same as the original approval, which the second floor glass walls connected to 1962 Market Street are proposed to have like a brick pattern. And then the bottom half is supposed to have kind of like a modern line design.
Are there any other questions for staff? Okay, thank you, Crystal. I will invite the applicant up for presentation. And you'll have 10 minutes as soon as you're ready and Brittany's ready.
Can you move Ally over as a presenter too, just in case? Want Peter moved over as well?
Ally Peters out of the country right now, so Ally will be available for questions, but I'm gonna handle the presentation.
Okay,
Thank you.
When you're ready. Yep, and if you could
I
start with
am-
name and address, please.
Yes, of course. Matt Runyon, 1962 Blake Street, Suite 200. I am representing the applicant, which is 1962 Market Street Partners, in affiliation with Mofford Companies and Circle West Architects for this application. Thank you so much for time today. It seems like we were just here yesterday, right? So we're excited to be back, and I'd be remiss without mentioning that we are in fact here because of the tremendous work of Crystal, Jen Capetto, Brittany, the rest of Landmark staff for working creatively and quickly to meet with us after our last meeting to come up with these solutions, because time is of the essence for us. We knew when we took this project on that it was going to be a challenging one, but our commitment to the neighborhood as depicted in this picture, the first slide, is real. And so we took this project on, not really knowing the full condition of the buildings to the extent that we are now, I'll put it that way. Even with that, we took this forward, and it's been a long process, many conversations with many stakeholders. We're very pleased to be here today with in partnership with Historic Denver and now with Landmark staff. But we couldn't have been here without Crystal's help along the way. So I wanted to say thank you there first. Next slide, please. A little different, since Crystal kind of covered the finer points, I won't belabor them, but I do think that it's important that when you guys are assessing the approval of this project, that we are introducing some realities, right? As Nick, I think, astutely brought to light last time from the commission standpoint, when we took on this project, there was obviously cost to take that on. Delays in getting to this point have cost us significantly. Design changes have cost us significantly. And that trickle down effect ultimately falls to a tenant. It puts us in a really tough position to actually execute the project if we can't find somebody to operate the facility, right? So it's really important for us to do two things through this. And I think we've done a fantastic job, and I hope you will agree, we've done a fantastic job of threading the needle here. And that needle really is, how do we honor a building that has cultural significance next to a building that has architectural significance, with bringing it into the modern age from the standpoint of business use in a world where land costs and interest rates have made it very difficult to develop. All things are against us. And so we have tried our best to appease all the parties that are stakeholders here, while also trying to plan for the eventuality of somebody taking this over. In order to be successful here, we think that we have to open doors by March of 2026. Approval here today is very important for us to meet that goal, because this will inevitably take us through SDP concept, and we can actually start putting our building plans together and taking those through the city. So that's our appeal to you. Some notes on here just to show the facts and figures as it relates to the effects, but again, I won't belabor the point. But this is very consequential for us. Next slide, please. Wanted to touch on really quick as well, just how much effort we've gone through to touch different stakeholders. And you guys are our final piece. So we're excited to bring this forth to your attention with the hope that you say yes as well. A list of those groups are included. I thought it would be a good idea to, not that we're gonna go through all of this, but if I may, I've created a small handout. This is something we actually provided to Crystal in preparation for this. It's a small matrix of our addressing each of the comments that have come out of here, updated to reflect our most recent comments from Crystal. I'd like to give that to you because I think what it does is it indicates our level of thoughtfulness along the way. We didn't haphazardly choose to do anything in this submittal. Again, we tried to answer the mail while also being cognizant of business needs. And so hopefully that shows the level of diligence that we've applied to this project. If we can go to the final slide, please, really quick. Crystal mostly touched on this, but I did want to talk on two elements really. One is the fact that we tried our best to maintain as much as possible. One of the comments that was made by Crystal moments ago that I think is really important to note is what parts of the building we're actually demolishing. The condition on the back half of the building of 1320 20th Street is in tremendous disrepair. A lot of that has to do with the existing foundations below and how those were constructed. Settlement, water tables and such have had an ongoing impact on that. There's cracks in the wall and so forth. Luckily, it has not touched the front facade that we're keeping. The connectivity is important. The double height glass, as we're showing it in our presentation, while not visible to the outside, from the outside, it is important for us to create that connectivity between the spaces. Again, this is an economic driver. Volume is of importance, which is why we've fought as hard as we have for the rooftop, because ultimately there's no way for a business with the small amount of square footage on this very thin zone lot to be successful with just one floor or even two floors, because as you'll note, we have three. So that rooftop is really a key addition that will help drive the business that is requisite to meet rent and thereby continue operations. So volume and our attention to keeping parts of this building, obviously our negotiation of sorts with Historic Denver has led to what the design looks like on 1962. But in essence, I wanted to just share that we tried to do our best from an architectural perspective to align everything with what exists here today to meet the guidelines. And we heard you loud and clear in terms of subordination and as it pertains to the storefront. I actually think that the result here today is something that we're very pleased with. While it challenges us on the economic front from a volume perspective, we actually think this looks like the most beautiful version of what we've come up with yet. So we're very excited about that. And I'll end with just saying thank you again to Crystal and team. I think it's rare. In my experience coming before the commission, I've never seen us come back 1 month after, which speaks to a very aggressive, working relationship, our ability to get work done. Kudos to Ali, who's online as well, for putting designs together quickly to reflect those conversations and to empower this conversation to move forward. And thank you to you. So our final piece here today, hopefully to get through SDP, through this hurdle, then SDP, which will keep us on track. And ultimately, I'll end with saying that, it is our goal to beautify this neighborhood. We're very invested in Lodo. We love Lodo. We office here, we live here. And to that point, this is more than a project for us, but we sit here today talking about how important this project is to the greater goal. I think if we're all working here together and in advancing that, I think we'll all make this place a better place to live and work. So with that, I'll end it, but thank you very much for your time.
Do you
Look forward to
wanna,
your questions.
do you wanna share your sample?
Oh, yes,
You have
please,
a
sorry.
minute.
Here's the point about the sample. So we didn't know what it would look like until, so I'm prefacing this. We didn't know what it would look like until we actually got the sample, and obviously we were under tight time constraints. We intend to work with Historic Denver and you guys to bring this back when we get a better sample, but at least you can see how the fritted glass will be constructed. So I'll pass that around if you'd like to see it. I just don't think we like the exact brick design that's existing.
Hey, does anybody have any questions for the applicant? Maybe?
Is the intent that this will operate as a single building? And currently there are two buildings, but because of the way the egress stair is set up, I'm assuming that the zoned lots will have to be merged together. It'll be a single address.
It is one zone lot already.
It's already one address?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, it's not one address, so we'll change that for sure through zoning as we go, but yes, it is intended to be one combined concept on entirety.
Okay.
And we've had to do this down the block as well. Again, it's an economic, thing as it relates to cost and
You've got
And
two
how
small
you-
buildings, you need to make
Yeah,
them work together.
exactly.
And then this one's gonna make you dive into your drawings a little bit. On page, what is it? 26, it shows the demolition plan for the second, and I'm going through the roof. And it looks like the current structure is a series of columns with north-south running beams and then probably east-west running tertiary beams. For landmarks, the demolition of more than 40% is considered a full demolition. Since you're taking out the back wall and it looks like on your updated plans, you're removing all the columns, what is the intent of supporting that roof so it's not a demolition? Are you threading in a new beam? Are there columns that I'm not seeing? in the
Yeah,
updated
I mean,
plans?
we've done this before. I believe the best example is on Whiskey Row. We actually maintained portions of the roof. And look, I don't know exactly how to explain the means and methods, but I mean, significant shoring does go in place to maintain the walls that we sign up to maintain. In the meantime of putting in a new structure, a new
Okay.
steel structure.
It's just gonna be important for, as it goes forward, as LPC is gonna keep an eye on stuff, that there's notes on your drawings or something that states the fact that roof to remain, structure to remain, because if they go out and they see a facade-ectomy, that's gonna create all kinds of problems.
Understood, yeah, and look, I think it certainly isn't easy to do, but we have done it before.
Agreed. No,
and
I just wanted to make sure that we don't have a situation where it's easier for the contractor to remove all of it, then you trip the 40% rule, then Brittany's got a headache and we get called back and just let it be known. It's like when your architect says this shall remain,
Yes,
it needs to remain. No
100%.
RFI or ASI is gonna allow you out of that. It's what it is.
Just holding the sample and I'll continue to pass it along. Can you elaborate a little on the discussions you've had with Historic Denver about?
Well, I
What-
think
what a
we
better-
generally know where we'd like to go with
Yeah.
the fritted glass as a concept, right? I think the issue, and John will speak here in a moment, I'll let him kind of answer the question from his perspective as well, but we again had a concept in mind. I think dialing in the exact files used to put that frit in are to be determined, right? But again, as a concept, that's what we're planning on doing, so the sample reflects, I think, the glass that will be used. We probably have some work to do on updating the JPEG or vector file that goes in it, right?
Any other questions for the applicant? Going once? Twice? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, so we will open it up now to public comment. I think we've got some folks here in the room who would like to speak. So if you would like to speak, please raise your hand, let us know, and we'll again, you wanna go ahead and start, Dick? If you could start with name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Dick Farley. I'm co-chair of the Lodo District Inc. I live at 2500 Walnut Street. And I'm here representing the Lodo District. And we support this second submittal for 1962 Market and 1320 20th Street. We think that the plant has worked diligently with staff and made improvements in the simplicity of the third floor and the setbacks. So we think those are really good improvements. I think the staff did a good job at pushing for those. The glass fitting needs a bit of refinement. I think that although it's a detail that shouldn't hold up approval.
Anyone else in the room care to speak?
Morning, Dr. Shears, 1550 Windhoek. About 3 months ago, I got a call from Kenny Montfort. They were in the midst of design efforts for this project. He asked me if I would get involved and sort of as an outside, unbiased critic for the project. And I attended a meeting with the development group and with John Effenbaugh. And they sort of clued me in on what the issues were and where they were in the process. I then asked Dick Farley to be involved because I felt that it would be important to have someone representing the Lower Downtown District and someone with his experience. So together as a team, we worked through the design. We had a workshop with the architect and identified the problem and sort of rethought the solution, given the fact that, as Matt said, this is a very, very important building. We all have our own history sitting at that bar various times, and we all have stories. Thousands of people have stories. So there's no question about the importance of the building, but there were issues associated with the structure. And so it was a challenging problem to solve. I'm telling you all this because I think the process that we, Mumford actually initiated, bringing others in, involving Historic Denver in an effort to think together about the solution in order to bring a solution to you that was acceptable, was a good one. Historic Denver has had a reputation over the years. I've been involved in many of these kinds of projects where they have worked with the applicant and with the architects to come up with a solution rather than just be at odds with them. So I think the process, in addition to that, the efforts of staff, as always, are very professional. So the process, I've always said, has a lot to do with the product. I think you have a product here that is more than acceptable, and I think it's an award-winning project. And I urge you to accept this application. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Unknown caller.
Just gives me time to clear my throat. Hi, John Effenbaugh, Historic Denver, 1962 Market Street, geez, 1420 Alton Street. We thank the commission and the staff for the work on this. We thank you for your comments at the last meeting. We were supportive of the previous iteration. We are supportive of this iteration. We think your comments have improved the project, particularly with regard to the rooftop terrace of the current Giggle and Drizzly. We thank you for your positive comments about the corner at 1962 Market Street at the last meeting. As Chris said, Historic Denver has a reputation for working pragmatically with developers to try to find that sweet spot between demolition and retention. We feel that that's been achieved very well in this situation. Matt mentioned this project has been about threading the needle, and we completely feel that. It troubles me to hear the term total demolition, even though that's in the ordinance with regard to 1962 Market Street, because the reality outside this room is that it is not being totally demolished. There is going to be a small but mighty piece of 1962 Market Street there to allow everyone walking past it in the future to understand the fantastic culture and history that took place within that building. So yeah, we thank you. We urge you to approve this. I would just like to highlight that at the last meeting, I did hear the term facadectomy 3 times. 4, if you count when it was used as a facadectomy times 2. I've never heard that word used in a positive light. It's usually used derogatively or just indifferently. We think this is a great outcome and a great composition across the overall project. We're really excited to see it come to fruition on this corner. Thank you.
Anyone else in person wishing to public comment? I'm not seeing any. Taylor, do we have anybody on the Zoom? If you are on the Zoom and would like to speak, please use the hand raise button so we can move you over. Okay, it doesn't look like it. So is there any staff recap or follow-up, Crystal, before we open deliberations?
Not really. I would just say though, with regards to what's approved today, that kind of brick fitting is what we see in front of you. So if you have concerns about it, you may want to add a condition for it. If you don't, or you're comfortable with them working with Historic Denver and us without it coming back to you, then don't add a condition, but just want to let you know you have options if you did want it to come back.
It would still need to be a condition.
Yeah.
Conditions only go to staff for review, so if you're not comfortable with it, that maybe change your opinion on if you approve the project.
Okay. We all clear? Let's open deliberation. Does everybody think?
Personally think it's a vast improvement from last month. Really appreciate the effort to simplify the addition. I think the predominantly glass administration is much more supported in it than the previous kind of more modern kind of articulated facade. And although the setback doesn't meet the requirements, I think there was an effort, and I think it's I think we all understand that the area that's necessary to make it economically feasible and viable project for them. So, and I appreciate that they're retaining the ground floor existing administration. So.
Maybe. You look like something to say.
I always have something to say. No, but I want to go on the record again because I always get so uncomfortable when we have these groups that come in and say for economic viability, we have to add a 3rd floor, but at the same time, we're demolishing the 2nd floor. So it's like, I don't understand this need to do a facadectomy and then add a 3rd floor. Why can't the program fit into the historic building?
It's the floor to floor.
It's tight. It's a historic building. It's what you get. It's, you get the building you got, not the one you want.
Yeah, it's difficult to make work.
That being said, and that's the reason why I asked staff is, as a body, we do not have the purview over the demolition of the interior floor space. It kind of is what it is. That says the developer, owner, architect are on notice that, hey, they've got to keep at least 40, they can't demolish more than 40% of the roof, which, is one thing we've got. I am a little concerned that, to me, the design has not changed drastically. They've reskinned the exterior, but it's still a large addition close to the front of the building, which does not meet guidelines. However, I'm willing to be swayed by other members of the commission. I do see it's possible that I don't, the egress can be moved since, we're demolished 1962, you can move the entire core over there. That gets your diagonal distance. I just have concerns.
Well, and I think to kind of piggyback on your comment, and this isn't really a critique, it's just more of a reminder that I think that most of us on the commission, if not all of us on the commission, are sympathetic to the economic challenges. I mean, we've all had projects that are economically shaky or have cost more than people have imagined. But, it's just kind of a reminder for both the commission and the applicant and the general public that that's not part of our purview. It's never been. We have to make decisions based on design, how they fit the guidelines. And, there are things available with the city that if there are, particularly we saw this a lot on LBC, if there are hardships or there are things that financially or economically can't be done because of a design guideline, that there are other avenues for that. But we, as a commission, are not supposed to take that into consideration in our review. And so, taking that piece out of that and just looking solely at what is here in the application. I have similar questions of, is it really necessary to take out part of the second floor? But that's not really our purview. And so looking at what we have, and what is here, I still kind of share, I think I made the comment last time, I wasn't totally convinced that the stairs couldn't be shifted around for egress and that couldn't go back to 15 feet. I do really appreciate the efforts to simplify the rooftop structure. I think that's gone a long way. I think the elimination of those large fins and the kind of angled cornice on that upper piece has let that upper piece feel more subordinate, and has reduced the overall kind of mass of it. It feels lighter, it feels smaller, even though the overall height and size of it hasn't shifted that much. And I do really appreciate kind of the pullback of that overhanging roof, which I shared staff's feelings from the last review that it really felt like it loomed over the El Chapultepec shell, and pulling it back now, it feels much better. And you can imagine if there was still a roof on El Chapultepec, it would kind of sit in there nicely. So I really appreciate the efforts that they have done to simplify that, to lighten it, to make it feel more subordinate. I feel better about it. I do have concerns about the glass frit and the brick, and would definitely want that to be a condition that it would need to kind of continue through. Just looking at what is here, I think the biggest thing that I have obviously is that the scale is incorrect. Like, you can't use this teeny tiny brick print to replicate real brick. And so the scale of that is a big thing, and kind of the brick texture and things like that will obviously need some careful attention and some consideration. I also think it would be interesting if it was a little more transparent and not so not so opaque. But I think that's a design thing that can continue to be resolved with staff. I think the intent of capturing what was there and making sure it's the right scale, it's the right texture, that it feels like that brick. I think it's important that it's on the third surface of the glass in the IGU, so it's not front and center, but it's a little more shadowed, is important. Those are my thoughts.
I agree on the refinement of the third floor, and also I think with the balcony, I think you see examples where the rooftop experience is even closer to the sidewalk than we see in this building. And I think it's sort of a unique take on that vernacular that's been created in this district with the rooftops being very active. So I think that's commendable. And I think I said it last time, and I know you make a valid point on it's outside our purview, but I think part of preservation is giving new life to buildings. And I think they've done a great job of working with many more stakeholders than most projects typically do in order to thread that needle. So I'll go with what I have to say.
I also find it, I mean, it's, and this has come up in conversation on prior projects too, but you know, looking at the renderings and looking at the plans, that Market Street side of that rooftop is open. It doesn't have doors. And so this addition piece over the Giggling Grizzly building, over the contributing structure, is essentially a covered deck. Because it's not closed off to the weather. It will still be an outdoor space. It's just covered and it's shielded on 20th Street. So, you know, I don't know if that changes how it's approached. I still think it's a third story, even though it's open, and we've had that conversation on prior projects, that it's a third story, even though it's not fully conditioned and not fully closed, but
I think something just to add is as we're deliberating. The point of, or a condition for is that at the end of the day, these need to be reversible. So if this third story is taken off, how much effort has to go back into the building to restore it back to its original condition? And I think it just needs to be carefully looked at when it leaves us and continues down, that there's eyes on it to make sure that not more than what is stated is removed.
Yeah.
And then I don't think we have as much of a purview on the glass. I mean, my personal opinion is I think the brick fritting is a little cutesy. I think it's disingenuous to remove brick and then put back glass that looks like brick. If you're gonna remove the brick and replace it with glass, let it be glass. Have that contemporary distinction between the two. And, or even like, I know in some places they've done frets with other graphics or something that are completely contrasting with what's going on. I think that would be more successful than being like, hey, we took the brick down and now we're putting brick back. We're gonna take the brick down, put back glass.
yeah, I mean, then that's a design.
It's a design thing, but
A
I think.
design
I do
thing,
think what
but
you're
I-
saying is in opposition to the Secretary of Standards too. Like, there's been several towers that I've worked on where we've actually removed brick to create fenestration to make it viable to put residential units there. And then actually what Secretary of Standard approved is a translucent brick fritting.
But where your
Yeah.
opening's the size of a typical punched opening.
Yes.
Because I've seen that at like,
Well, and ribbon wall, you know.
and I think to me, that's personal preference. If it was a punched opening, be like, yeah, go back with the brick glass. But it's the entire first or second floor that's being removed.
Yeah.
Do something different. And that's a personal preference. I mean.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
subjective.
It's subjective.
I mean, I think that there could be some more, rather than just a full print, like, you know, what if it was frosted or fritted on just grout lines, and then the brick was still transparent? But those are things that I think,
But even that is, what I'm saying is the sample they have is a little cutesy. I wouldn't, that's not what I would do.
Yeah.
But when it comes back to, does that come back to us, or does it go to staff, or who's gonna review that?
well, I think we have to decide that.
I only thing I have to add is, I support this resubmission. I think it satisfies the vast majority of our intent at the last meeting. And I appreciate the efforts that went into it, especially to turn it around fast, both the staff and the applicant. Relating to the brick frit, I would be comfortable with a condition that allows staff to work through the finer details. especially since it's not on the contributing structure. And we have glass in the district, not necessarily with a brick frit, but that does have frit on it. So I would, I'd be comfortable letting staff work through this and proposing a condition to that end.
Well, I think your point too, Craig, on that is that this is being proposed on the non-contributing structure on the site, which I think allows in the guidelines for a little more interpretation and leeway. Are there any more thoughts, or does someone want to take a stab at a motion?
Attempt at a motion. Give me 1 second. to finish that.
Yeah, my computer died.
So just as a reminder, we're recommending approval. If you do have concerns again about the glass, which sounds like you do, then it would need to be a condition.
All right, well, here we go. I move to approve application number 2024 COA 709 for the 1-story rooftop addition, roof deck and site addition at 1320 20th Street and 1962 Market Street as per design policy, standards and guidelines 1.1.1, 1.1.5, 1.2.1, 1.2.2, 1.3.1, 1.3.2, 1.4.1, 1.4.2, 1.4.3, 8.1.1, 8.1.2, 8.1.3, presented testimony, submitted documentation, and information provided in the staff report with the added condition that the glass frit on 1962 Market Street, the brick frit, I should say, is worked through with city staff. Anyone want to offer a friendly suggestion on how to word that?
I think you got it. A little muddy, but you got it.
Little muddy,
So
thanks.
first, do we have a second on that?
Yes.
Thank you, Amy.
And then if there's any amendments, not saying there has to be, but.
Any amendments or recommendations on the motion?
Clarifications in the word.
Brick sample be, submitted and reviewed.
Yep.
I think it would be nice too if it was photographed adjacent to the existing material.
Add that as a friendly amendment.
Thank you.
Do you accept that?
100% yes.
And Amy, as you made it, I'm assuming you also.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Amy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Congratulations for the group. Okay, that closes design review today. Are there any business and discussion items?
So we'll just be looking at the 2025 calendar next
Only person I
meeting.
can trust.
And we'll likely have some adjustments to January and July.
Dinner and go with.
And then we're also likely proposing a
I was laughing so hard.
But we'll
I was like,
discuss
oh my God, I can't believe this.
But if you will potentially be out, let me know so I can send that to you in advance of the meeting, so you can look at that and comment on that.
We'll grab lunch.
All right, and with that, we will close the meeting at 9:26.